Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art and Talk. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Leslie Sue, the host for Art and Talk. If you're new to us, welcome. If you've been watching us for a while, thank you so much for your continued support. Art and Talk is all about meeting artists and being inspired. We aim to dive into each of our guests' heart and mind to gain a wider perspective of their art, their message, and their process. So today we're kicking off a series to bring you a select group of artists from the Art Acquisitions Large and Small that's currently on view at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County in Lake Beach, Florida. The Art Acquisitions exhibit spans across multiple art mediums, and it brings and opens a conversation for artists and collectors to define, question, and learn about their appreciation for art. So today, our guest is Ellen Lyman, and she is the co-founder and consultant to the Palm Beach Art Collection on Artsy, and she is also a longtime gallerist. She is the owner of the former Lyman Gallery in Palm Beach County. So we're going to be talking about the Art Acquisitions exhibit, and we'll also be viewing some of her visual art as well. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome our guest for today, Ellen Lyman. Hi, Ellen, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. We've been so excited to have you come aboard Art and Talk. So I'm wondering, Ellen, with your rich tapestry of involvement in the art world, your life has been and continues to be looking at art, studying art, creating art, collecting art, selling art, working with art scholars. You've served on various boards and continue for different art and cultural organizations. With this vast tapestry, I'm wondering if we can go back just a little bit, even if we can predate your formal education. And could you share with us, Ellen, the origins of your first recollection of exposure and influence in art?
I guess it was about when I was born almost, because I've studied art, painted art, been educated by art, one other wonderful artist my entire career. So as a working professional artist, I would say my interest in other artists, as well as my own work, of course, began at a very early stage, but not commercially. So commercially, the origin of the Lyman Gallery Palm Beach is about 20 years ago, when I realized that I would be living here pretty much full time in Palm Beach County, in Palm Beach Island, and that I had crossed paths with so many fabulous artists, important artists, emerging artists, unknown artists, being from New York, access to studios and master's programs at universities, that it would be really interesting to have a gallery for other artists. So that's the origin really of my interest in promoting other artists.
And you have quite a lot of formal education. Would you be able to touch upon how that set the stage and the foundation for your art world experience and interaction and journey?
So I had always spent really my adult life working with artists, one way or another. I also, at a certain stage in my life, had 3 children, 3 wonderful, fabulous, successful children. But when I was at home, a working mom at home, I wrote books on decorating instead of painting, but I did illustrate them. So those were published pretty much by well-known publishers at even coffee table books. And as I said, I illustrated some of them. So I had a bit of a hiatus there, and it's a sort of different spin to my career. But I'm sure that experience helped me enormously too, being in the publishing world. And then at a certain point in time, I was lucky enough to be assigned to be a member of the New York City Commission for Cultural Affairs. So there I worked with all kinds of arts organizations in New York City, and of course with many artists. And actually, I sort of forgot about it, but now that you're asking me the question, I actually ran a gallery for the Department of Cultural Affairs in New York City in the 80s. I was appointed by Mayor Koch to be on the commission and also to help promote the cultural life of the city as part of the staff of the Department of Cultural Affairs. So I created this gallery called City Galley, and we made the spaces available to any art organization without fee. So we would have changing shows for a variety, many different, mostly smaller arts organizations in the city. And I suppose that was probably my first introduction to this world that I seem to be in right now.
And Ellen, before we talk about the art acquisitions, with your rich experience with galleries and emerging artists, established artists, and being involved in that world, are there a couple of different, let's say, adjectives, qualities, characteristics that your educated eye and experience and your particular palette seems to resonate with and look for when you come across a potential artist who represents?
It's hard to pin it down, but I suppose I've been looking at art and doing art myself and looking at it and looking at other people's work. You'd sort of develop an eye just for talent. I mean, to see, so it's I can't say it's a particular ingredient, but it's how it all works together. And, you know, it's called an educated eye. And it's also another reason I'm really very interested in art education, because I think everybody can sort of develop kind of an educated eye in a way.
So the art education is an important element that you incorporate and set out as important for any artist in any particular art form.
Well, I think it's important for everybody, artists or not artists. I mean, to be exposed to it. I'm very interested in art education and supporting art education personally. Just as an aside, I'm on the board of directors of the Dreyfus School of the Arts in West Palm Beach, which I'm sure you listeners would know about, but if they don't, it's a fantastic public school that takes highly vetted Palm Beach County high schoolers and in every artistic persuasion. So, you know, again, there I'm working with artists, I'm working with supporters of artists, you know, on both sides of the fence, really, making it and supporting it and so forth. But the bottom line, frankly, is that I have found in my recent careers that all of this has had a very positive effect on my own personal work. Because I think as a working artist, if you're exposed to all of these different opportunities, so to speak, it really enhances your own personal thinking about creation. And I think hopefully it's maybe reflected in my own work.
Are there any more specifics that you could add, Ellen, to how all this exposure and experience has helped to shape your art and bring on the evolution of your art in your own particular style?
Well, I have a very close relationship, for example, with one of the founders of the New York Studio School, which is a very good master's program in the fine arts and sculpture in Manhattan. And his name was Louis Finkelstein, and he died about 10 years ago. So because I was working artist, I had a particularly great opportunity to attend classes there and to meet him. And then at certain points in time, I painted with him actually. And so I could be influenced, even watch him work, besides just listen to one of his lectures. And many years later, he became a client of Liman, Galley, Palm Beach, and we still have some of his work on our website, the Palm Beach Art Collection. So, you know, it all sort of kind of fed on each other. And for me, it was just like really great to be able to digest and see the work of other artists. And I particularly want to talk about the Cultural Council's present exhibition, because I think it's outstanding, and I think the choice of artists is brilliant, and the installation is very professional and effective. And you know, working in the field, I guess I really appreciate all of the effort and all of the talent that went into creating this particular show, and of course all of their shows. I mean, I'm a little biased because I think the Cultural Council is a great asset to the Palm Beach County, Palm Beach, to artists and to visitors and residents. It just, we're very lucky to have that. But also my own work was in a solo show several years ago. So I was very lucky that I was chosen to show my own work there as well.
Yes, thank you for those words. And the exhibit is absolutely amazing, the art acquisitions. There is a particular painting that's an abstract work. It's by Eileen Lyons, and we're going to go ahead and pull it up. And if we could receive some of your commentary on it, and give me just a moment, and we'll pull that up. Okay. So here's her work, and it's called Ocean Walk #1. Can you share with us your thoughts on this work?
Well, you know, looking at all art, it's sort of very subjective. And when you say something that sounds sort of silly, like that just spoke to me, you know, I mean, that's what people say, you know, should always buy art or live with art that sort of speaks to you. So this kind of like spoke to me. And I could understand but sort of some technical things of why it was very successful. It's extremely difficult to do a very successful abstract painting. Much easier to do a figurative work. And you know, the colors, the combination of the colors, the shapes, the locations, the scale, the finish, all go into making something really stand out, which I think this did.
Let's go ahead and move, Ellen, into your solo exhibition of your floral series. Can you share with us a little bit about that? And could you define for us your painting style and your love of nature and florals? Okay, so here we're going to enter in your solo exhibition.
I can talk about that. Hi, this is a retrospective of my flower work at the being offered through the Palm Beach Art Collection on Artsy. And so what you saw was a general exhibit of a lot of my flower paintings. They're either oils or acrylics on canvas, pretty large scale. I like to work large scale, around 30 by 40. These days, that's probably not even considered that big, 36 by 48. This is one of my more recent flower paintings. And I have become much looser, I guess, in my old age. And I'm very interested in movement and in obviously strong color. And I like a lot of impasto. So my paintings generally texturally have a lot, have a lot of texture, dimension. I'm very interested in issues of space. And, at the end of the day, I'm really interested in the flowers, the shape of the flower. And I do all the arrangements myself for these still lifes.
Beautiful. And we have a little.
I don't know if you want to show any of the other paintings in that exhibition. This is exhibition on artsy of my floral paintings. It's a, you know, a virtual exhibit of that work.
Sure, let's continue on.
This is a sort of an earlier work. You can tell that because it's much tighter. I have a studio in the summer in Martha's Vineyard, and fortunately, I have a son who has a very nice property that loans me space for a studio, and also has a terrific flower garden. So I did a lot of studies over many, many years of sunflowers, particularly. And I'm dealing with the same issue, though, as in the previous painting that you saw. However, this is much more tightly constructed. And I think my style now is extremely much looser. I'm experimenting with some other kinds of medium and mixing things up a bit too.
Mhm.
If you want to show anything else in that grouping, it's another painting so slightly earlier, and this is oil on canvas, about 36 by 48. It's on the artsy site, the Palm Beach Art Collection, the section that features my work, Ellen Liman. And again, I'm interested in composition. So I think that this particular work is very strong in its sort of composition, and also a little bit interested in being a little edgy. Things might not be exactly positioned the way they would be in reality. I try to push the envelope because I want to show some movement. And still life is, as you say, still. And so when doing a still life, you would like to try to get a little action. And I guess one of the ways that I've been able to do that in a lot of my work, and frankly, in most of my work, I'm really interested in the in and out, you know, foreground, background, shapes going in different directions, a little askew. So that's about it on this painting.
All right, we'll move on into a few more.
Just sweep a little more, please. Can sweep it a little more, see if we can get something that's a little different, and I keep going. Maybe we can find a collage, or keep going, keep going, keep going. These are all summer paintings done in my Martha's Vineyard studio, and some of them in my Palm Beach studio. This is in my Palm Beach studio. In fact, I think it's right behind me. And this is in the Dominican Republic. I did that on site, actually. When I do landscapes, over the years, I've painted en plein air when possible. So I do have some work that's landscapes. I wonder if you're going to show my new collages, because now I'm more interested in taking painting like this and seeing if I can do other layers by adding on, you know, some paper images.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to get to those. We can just do a few more of these, and you can just stop me when there's something you want to mention about.
That's a great idea. Thank you very much.
We get a nice view of your floor.
Yeah, these are about 4 feet by 6 feet. This is painting is in my studio now. This is recent work. Stop at that one. That's on display now. I think that's about 4 feet by 6 feet. It's acrylic on canvas and set up in my studio in West Palm Beach. I have a studio at 1608 South Dixie, very big studio. And so it's terrific because I can do these really very big paintings and set up these wonderful little still life studies. Again, same kind of elements I was talking about, in and out, forward and background, color, interesting shapes that present themselves, composition that's, I hope, is interesting, and of course, again, color.
Mhm.
This was again, in the same period of time. I think I did these about 5 or 6 years ago. It's also quite a very large painting. This was the cover actually of my exhibit at the Cultural Council when I had a one-person show with a lot of work in this particular vein.
Mhm. All right, let's take a look at a few more.
This is interesting because the space is much less defined. The palette is much softer. It was a little different for me. It's also a diptych. I put two canvases together. Some people say, well, why would you do that? And I just was sort of a challenge to see if I could just, what would happen if I did that. And also you're able to have a much larger painting. And it's portable too. I think one issue with art now is how do you, get it around, move it in and out? How do people hang it? Do they, how do they ship it? So forth. But anyway, I did this as a diptych for artistic reasons. And the palette is much softer. And so, that was just a different way of working. So I'm always looking for new challenges.
Mhm. I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share for a moment. Ellen, I have a question. As I was looking on your personal painting website, and you have covered so many different subject matters in your painting so beautifully, and in all the different areas that you've been expressing. I'm just wondering, what I've noticed is, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that it seems like you like to almost like step back and create a view of whatever it is that you're painting. Like, for example, a cityscape, a still life, certain other subject matter are going to kind of lend themselves to that. But like, for example, at least I haven't seen, and correct me with this, I haven't seen any close-ups, for example, like in your florals. If there is something that's close up, there's also there's patterns, there's all this movement, there's sort of a grouping, and I don't see like a portrait in terms of like a close-up. It's almost like you love to have this grand.
Are you asking me, have I done portraits? I specialize in portraits, actually. And I mean, I've had a really long career. So at a certain point, I drew all the time. I still draw. When I go to a concert, I often, like at the Four Arts, I've done a whole series of drawings of concert performers, as I sit there. So, kind of always working, but I do a lot of portraits, and frankly, I'm thinking of, maybe the next couple of months, maybe to go back to that a bit. But so I'm very interested in people. I've done a whole series of people reading on the beach, in collages, in drawings, in paintings. I guess what you would say, I'm doing really whatever sort of is in front of me as a sort of inspiration.
Mhm. And let's talk about, Ellen, your current art direction. You've kind of tapped into that a little bit. It's a little bit looser. It has a little bit more different feel. Would you like to share with us some of that? And then we'll pull up some images.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Mhm. Let's go ahead and move into your current art direction, and then we'll look at some images of some of your current work.
Yes, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and pull them up. All right. Okay.
That's interesting because you just saw the flowers that I did. So when I was locked up during COVID, it was like 2 years that actually the Galley had to be closed, and I was working either at home or in another small space near my home. So I started to work on a smaller scale, and I think it's really good for any artist to kind of be forced to rethink things because of these physical changes in your life. So this is a collage. This is really what I probably could call a paper painting. It's paper. It's copies of pieces of the paintings that you may have seen of my flowers. And I just, on a copy machine, copied aspects of the paintings. And then with a whole bunch of sheets of paper with different kinds of reproductions, I cut everything up and sort of reconfigured to make these abstracts. So this is not paint. This is paper, and it's on wood. And if you have any other images of my collages, but it's a medium that I really found very challenging to see how I could take work that was pretty figurative and I sort of recycle it into these creations. Then these are small, they're like 9 by 12 on a wood panel.
All right, beautiful, Ellen. Love the colors.
Thank you.
And the movement. All right, let's take a look at another one of your recent works.
So this is interesting because it's the new direction I'm going in. All of the factors I talked about that go into a sort of a successful painting by me or anybody else. So here, I found a painting that, again, during lockup and COVID, that was not successful. To me, it just was like one of my lesser works. It was very, I thought was not successful. And I said, let me just see what I can do with my paper painting mode that I'm in now, my collage mode. So I collaged over an original painting. And if you were to see this work, you could see the aspects that were the original painting. And then I added, I sort of built on it. And I purposely did things that were, again, a little off, that would not be really true to reality. And I guess the best example there in this particular work is the flower on the table, which is obviously way off scale. And to me, that really makes the painting in a way. It says like, just look at these other things that are really like not exactly what you would expect. So it makes it a much more interesting painting because there's sort of a lot of surprises. And I'm thinking about now taking some of my other works, which artists do this all the time, as you know. It's no secret to have a very important painting put on this investigation by a conservator to find another painting by the artist underneath where he's painted over. So I don't feel too bad about doing that myself. And I'm going to try to see if there's some other works that need a little help. And with this collage technique that I think have accomplished the technical part of doing collage, which is not easy. And the different materials that you use, the different challenges, it's very interesting to me. So it's kind of the new direction of my work. Not necessarily to take an old painting. I might even take a new painting and make a combination of it being paint and other materials. I mean, this has a lot of tape on it, if you were to see the original, just plain masking tape.
Yes. All right, we have one more to take a look at, Ellen. Here we go.
So also in my COVID lockdown period, and again, exploring collage, I did a series called Palm Beach collages, which again were on wood. They're about 9 by 12. And here I chose images commercial images from magazines and publications and combined it with my own painting pieces of my own paintings, which you can see like the rocks and in this particular work, the rocks and the beach and the water. Well, that's a piece of my own painting. It's not the actual painting. That was a watercolor I made, and I just copied the watercolor on a copy machine, and then I just cut it up and put the pieces of the copy in this particular work, which combines with other images from print media that relate to Palm Beach. So I was trying here to, which was really a lot of fun, see if I could make a work that technically and artistically work together and include as many local sites from the Palm Beach area. So if you were to see this blown up, you could see that there's a little picture of the Society of the Four Arts, and I have maybe a little picture of Royal Ponciano Way, and I think in this one I have a little dog because, you know, in Palm Beach, a lot of people have little dogs. And so again, this was, you know, another new direction that I've been exploring.
Thank you, Ellen, for sharing your new artistic direction with your collage and helping us understand your process and your thoughts and what you integrate in it.
It's so interesting for me to have you ask me these wonderful questions. So thank you so much, because I haven't really thought about my own works quite so much as your questions have made me think.
Oh, wonderful. I do have a few more questions, if you don't mind, Ellen. If we could step into your shoes for a moment while you're in the studio, while you're in process and you're creating. First, I'm just curious to ask you, once you enter into your studio space, you walk in that door, is there anything you leave behind? And is there anything that you take on in your mind and your orientation that you could share with us as part of your studio process?
I guess every artist has a challenging each day where, you know, so here's a blank canvas. I mean, if you're a writer, you have the same issue. Here's a blank piece of paper. Now what? And so you just kind of look around, and at least I look around to see what's sort of inspiring me. And so a lot of it has to do with locale. So in my studio, I'm indoors, right? And so that's why a lot of my work is still life, because, you know, one day I might have gone in and said, oh, I have all of these Coke bottles and these wine bottles, and we had a party recently. So let me see what I can make of that. So if you would look at the body of my work, you would see that I have a section of, you know, a couple of months when I was just sort of focused on these bottles. And then maybe I had a wonderful dinner at the Palm Beach Grill. I don't know whether you have an image of that. Do you have an image of the Palm Beach Grill?
We don't, but that is on your website, and we'll be including the link so that the audience.
So, you know, so I said, well, you know, I was dining there, and the lighting is so interesting. And the shapes, and also a lot of the upholstery is red. So, you know, I love color. And so this was sort of a challenge, that how do I, you know, make something really interesting out of this space. And there I did something very different, because I wanted to remember what I saw, combine it with actual reality. So I think that I took some photographs that I think I did about 6 paintings, and it's called the Palm Beach Grill series, and they're about 30 by 40 size. And I think I worked off a combination of my memory, the photographs, but I'm not a very literal artist, and so the photographs really were just a guide. So, you know, it's like experience, the question you asked me, how do you know what you're going to do next? And, now I'm faced with a change in the seasons and a change in the location of my studio. So I'll be thinking about what am I seeing outside the window, or what did I dream about, or who knows. But I guess all artists will say, you're always working in a way. And that's why it's been so terrific for me to be able to go to the Cultural Council, see a terrific exhibition, because you get inspired, you get ideas, or to go to my gallery, which recently closed, as you may know, after 20 years. The Palm Beach Art Gallery was in a Paramount building. And so I would sit there, selling, hopefully, but also surrounded by other art that reinforced things that I was interested in, particularly when I told you about this Louis Finkelstein at the beginning of the interview, who I was lucky enough, because I did have the gallery, to have be able to represent him, and also to be able to live with his work as I'm sitting in my gallery space. So I've been really very lucky that it all kinds of feeds on each other and hopefully makes my work a little more interesting.
I so appreciate, Ellen, you sharing all these different aspects of your influences, of what inspires you, whether it's your natural surroundings, or I love that you were at a party, or maybe you're having a wonderful dinner, you're out and about. You really pull from so many different areas of life. You give it so much thought. Seems like you really like to challenge yourself. You're like, how can I present this in a different and unique way? And then you just kind of go with it, and there it comes.
Well, why not? That's what we artists have to do, go with it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Ellen, while we just have another moment or so, in your estimation, is there a role and function of the artist on the broader scope? And then can you identify that in terms of a painter?
Is there an art?
Yes. I'm wondering if you could share with us your thoughts on, is there a function or role of an artist, broadly speaking? And then if you could tap into that, speaking directly to someone who's a painter.
It's very personal, but I think that that a lot of art that collectors are interested in and artists are interested in making is message art, which is clearly not my art necessarily. It's not what I've been interested in doing, but I think that in this era where there is so much to think about, so many issues to think about, that naturally a lot of very strong, fabulous art is being created with that message. But I could also say that there's a lot of art that's problematic in the marketplace, that's might be insincere, or just out there because it's highly marketed for money. So we haven't even gotten to that end of it. And I only like to say that it's a shame that art is so monetized now, and that often talent is not as recognized as it should be, for obvious reasons.
Thank you for sharing that, Ellen. I'm wondering if you'd be kind enough, as we move into closing the show. We have had many guests who are painters working in the visual arts. I'm wondering if you could share some words of wisdom to them. And we've also had many writers on Art and Talk as well. And you're an author, you have 7 different books. Would you be able to offer some words of wisdom to the writers in our audience as well?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think in all walks of life, if you can, if you are able to do it, you should just do it and go with the flow. And so many people say to me, "Oh, you're so lucky because you have this creative talent, and I can't draw a stick." And that's really not true. I think that anybody can do what they want to do, and they should just go and do it and play around. Today, there's so many ways for artists to express themselves, particularly because of the internet. And you make fabulous art digitally with all kinds of support systems. So what I would just say is, like, just go and do it. And I don't think it's necessarily a great revenue stream, but I think that that people should just it's so wonderful to be able to have that release of creating and making something that's yours and that makes you feel good. And don't worry about the public. I mean, unless you obviously have to make a living at it. So that's a whole different subject to get into. But I'm just talking more about the philosophy, the philosophical aspect.
And any words of wisdom, Ellen, for writers who may be watching?
Writers?
Yes.
Well, I published 7 books on design and by big publishers many years ago, and in a very much earlier career. And it's very demanding. It's extremely demanding. And I guess the same thing is with any art form. If you have that calling, I mean, I have one child that's quite a successful movie director, Doug Liman, and I see that he just has this passion and perseverance and ability not to be disparaged. And I suppose you would say that we all, should bring that to whatever creation we're doing.
Thank you, Ellen, for those words of wisdom. We do need to close the show out. It has been such a fabulous honor and delight to connect with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other closing comments that you would like to share with us before we wrap up the show?
I would just say that this is amazing. I'm doing this Zoom because I'm very untechy. And, now that I'm a consultant and the founder of the Palm Beach Art Collection, which is on Artsy, which is sort of the rejuvenation of my gallery experience. I can't believe that I'm in this new internet world. And as a working artist, of course, that's another thing to think about, right? So thank you very much for inviting me to be on Zoom. And I'm so happy that I technically, I've been able to, pull it off with you. And I appreciate it very much. It's been a wonderful interview.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. You were fabulous. Much success, Ellen, with all your endeavors.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching Art and Talk today. As always, we appreciate the time you take to watch our artist videos. Stay connected with Art and Talk. In the next couple of weeks, we'll be presenting to you the artists exhibiting in the Art Acquisitions show at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County and Lake Worth Beach, Florida. Just a little heads up here. If you want to go to our Facebook page, and if you look for the post, it says Art Acquisitions, you'll find 2 links. One of the links, you can watch a video tour of the exhibit. And in the next link, you'll also be able to jump on the Cultural Council's website, and you'll be able to see all the artists contributing to the Art Acquisitions exhibit. You can find out a little bit more information. Also, just another little reminder that Art and Talk has their Make Art Not War project still going on. It's open to any artist working into any art form. So if you're interested in participating, I'll include the video at the end of this one, and you can find out a few little more guidelines and specifics to participating in our Make Art Not War current project. All right, so thank you again, and we'll talk soon on the next Art and Talk. Until then, be well and be blessed.